The bell of the central church in Alderwood tolled 8 times, slow and solemn. It was as if the whole town was holding its breath for the biggest wedding of the year. Inside a second-floor room of the Rosedale Inn, Elena Marlowe sat before the mirror, her back straight, her bare face calm, eyes fixed on her own reflection, as though searching for an answer from the woman about to step into marriage. Behind her, the wedding dress hung loosely over the back of a chair, silent and snow-white. Everything was ready. Her hair had been curled into soft waves, her nails painted a pale nude, and a pair of lace heels sat neatly beneath the vanity table. Everything. Except one thing. Gareth hadn't texted. He always texted her in the morning, ever since they first started dating. "Good morning, future Mrs. Linwood." But today her phone was silent. No message. No call. No sign that the town's most anticipated groom was as anxious as she was. Elena picked up her phone again and opened her messages. Still empty. Not even the telltale typing bubble. She frowned slightly, but forced herself to let it go. Gareth was probably caught up in a dozen things. His father was the mayor, the guest list read like a novel, and the local press was circling like hawks. A moment of quiet might be a luxury he didn't have. She set the phone back down and tried to smile, but the smile never reached her eyes. Very few people in Alderwood knew that today's bride was also a creative content designer, working remotely for a major advertising agency based in Chicago. With a background in visual communication, Elena was the mind behind many elegant lifestyle campaigns on Instagram and Pinterest, posts that garnered thousands of likes, poetic concepts, and wedding photos so dreamy they made people believe happiness could be art-directed. She worked in silence, lived quietly, and never boasted. But in every image she crafted, there was a whole beautiful world, one she always believed she would someday live in herself. Truly. 9:06 a.m. Vivian Cross, her best friend from college, burst in wearing a champagne-colored bridesmaid dress and a smile brighter than the room's lighting. She hugged Elena from behind and giggled. "Oh my God, you're actually getting married!" Vivian squealed. "Gareth must be losing his mind over there." Elena smiled faintly, trying to believe it. "He hasn't texted me this morning," she said, brushing past the detail as if it didn't matter. Vivian paused for half a second, then laughed. "Men, on wedding days, they all turn into idiots. They think the world revolves around them and forget basic manners." She gave Elena's shoulder a playful pat, her eyes flicking quickly to the phone on the table, too fast for Elena to notice. "Come on, this is your day. Put that phone away and let everyone else do the worrying for you." 9:38 a.m. The phone buzzed. Elena snatched it like someone dying of thirst, grabbing the first drop of rain. A message from Gareth, just one line. "I'm sorry." 3 words. Nothing more. Elena froze. Her hand still gripped the phone, but her body went numb. No follow-up call, no explanation. No, this couldn't be happening. She hit call. "The number you are trying to reach is currently unavailable." She tried again. Same result. She called Reese, Gareth's best friend and best man. No answer. Called again. Nothing. She turned to Vivian. Her friend's face had stiffened, but she quickly stepped forward, snatching the phone from Elena's hand. "Elena, wait, don't. You know something, don't you?" Elena's voice was hoarse, almost a whisper. Vivian opened her mouth, but no words came. Her face turned pale. 1 second. 2. The room thickened with silence. Elena slowly turned back to the mirror, facing her own reflection. Still in her white silk robe, cheeks bare, lips untouched, hair only half done. A bride. A fool. A puppet. She didn't cry. She only took one deep, steady breath, then quietly removed the hairpin and set it down. "I won't be getting married today," she said. "And maybe never." The dressing room door clicked shut behind her as Elena walked into the hallway. Outside, the sun was shining, golden and radiant, but inside her, everything had just collapsed. One text message, one abandoned bride, one town bearing witness. But no one knew. The woman who walked away from her wedding that day would come back, and when she did, no one would ever dare leave her behind again. Elena moved to Newfield less than 2 weeks after the failed wedding. No drama, no announcements, no one waving goodbye, just a quiet withdrawal, exactly how she had always lived. Her new apartment sat on the 4th floor of an old building with no elevator. The wooden stairs creaked with every late return, but at least here, no one knew she had once been the most famously abandoned bride in Alderwood. Her old job followed her to the new city. As a content designer for lifestyle brands, Elena could work remotely as long as she had Wi-Fi and silence. She still received regular projects, still corrected color tones for perfume campaigns, wrote captions for Italian leather shoes, and styled flat-lay photos of inspired birthday gift sets. Her bank account remained full, but her heart was empty. Each morning, Elena worked as usual, but after 7 p.m. each day, she became someone else, someone building quietly in the shadows. She created an anonymous account called Her After, a personal project, a space where women could speak about life after heartbreak, after grief, after betrayal. Elena didn't share her own story, not yet, but she began posting short lines. She thought she was the main character in a fairy tale, but then the author vanished, and she had to write the rest herself. Each line like that was shared thousands of times. Messages poured in from women everywhere, emails laced with regret, whispers of shame, unfinished sentences that revealed entire lives unraveling. Elena read them, saved them, and began to realize maybe she wasn't as alone as she once believed. Some nights, Elena sat alone in her small living room, the dim yellow light glowing above her, tapping at the keyboard and remembering. Back when they were just falling in love, Gareth used to prop his feet on her desk while she edited photos. He'd fiddle with props, playfully rearranging things. Once, he placed real flower petals on the table and said he was testing the color of love. Then he whispered, "This photo isn't for a campaign, it's for our fridge someday." She had laughed, called him ridiculous. Now the memory pressed against her chest like an echo in a hollow room. Another time, Gareth proposed to her in the middle of a forest light installation. Fairy lights hung like stars in the trees, and he knelt down, voice shaking like a teenager on a first date. "I don't need a perfect life. I just need to wake up every morning and see you first." Back then, Elena believed, if anything was more solid than a diamond ring, it was the way Gareth looked at her that night. Now, that gaze felt like a paper cut, small but deep. She used to imagine a little house with an open kitchen, an electric fireplace, and a shared workspace where she wrote content and Gareth edited photos. Evenings with red wine, competing to write brand taglines. That dream now lived inside an old mood board file on her laptop, still undeleted, but no longer opened. But instead of deleting the file, she opened it and began to edit. She erased Gareth's photo, replaced it with an empty frame, and typed a note beneath, "Reserved for the one who doesn't run." 1 month passed, then 3. The Her After account grew to over 50,000 followers. A feminist media agency reached out, asking to interview the woman behind it. Elena declined. "Not yet," she whispered to herself. "I'm still rebuilding." But something inside her had shifted. She was no longer Elena Marlowe, the girl who designed dreams for other people. She was Elena, the woman who was now redesigning herself. Some things we believe are permanent turn out to be fleeting, and some things born in pain become so strong nothing can break them. Elena hadn't forgiven. She hadn't forgotten. But she had begun to live on her own terms. Marcus Vale. Mornings in Newfield always carried the same rhythm. Cars rushing by, the click of hurried heels, the steady drip of coffee behind cafe counters. Elena had grown used to it, like a quiet background score for her new life. Not vibrant, not still, but real. That day began like any other. She brewed her coffee, replied to emails from 3 different brands needing content schedules, and posted on Her After at exactly 8 a.m. Peak engagement hour. But at 9:32, a different email arrived, not from a client, not from a follower. Subject: private session for creative women. Potential guest sender. Assistant to Marcus Valle. Elena raised an eyebrow. She'd heard the name before. Marcus Vail, former marketing executive at two major corporations, founder of Vail & Co., a brand consultancy once called The Man Redefining Trust by Inc. magazine. One of the few men in the industry who talked about women with respect, without gloss or performance. Mr. Vail would like to invite you to a private creative session for content and visual artists. No press, no PR. We discovered you through her after. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Her fingers hovered over the trackpad. Then she typed, "I'll be there." The session was held in a space that didn't look like an event at all. A repurposed warehouse studio with high ceilings, natural light, and potted plants scattered casually around. Just 10 people. No stage, no microphone. Elena chose a seat in the back, where the light sliced in diagonally across her shoulder. Marcus Vail walked in at exactly 10. He looked nothing like his media photos. No blazer, no tie, no air of authority. Just a man in a rolled-up shirt, holding a paper coffee cup, smiling slowly. He didn't introduce himself. He just scanned the room once, then asked, "Have you ever wondered what would be left if you disappeared tomorrow?" Elena looked up. It was the same question she'd asked herself the morning after being left behind. No one responded. Marcus continued, his voice low, but sure. Sometimes we're so busy living the version of ourselves others expect, we forget who we once wanted to be. Elena watched him longer than she needed to. Not because of how he looked, but because his voice sounded like it was speaking something inside her that she hadn't yet said aloud. When the talk ended, they were invited to stay for tea. Elena was about to leave when an assistant approached and handed her a slip of paper. "Marcus would like to see you if you're not in a rush." She didn't respond right away, but her feet were already following the assistant into a small room behind the studio. Marcus stood by the window. When she entered, he turned and gave a quiet nod. "No expectation, no pretense. Thank you for coming, Elena." She froze for a moment. "I never introduced myself," she said. Marcus smiled. "I figured you'd guess I've read quite a few of your Her After pieces." Elena's hand tightened slightly on the strap of her bag. "So you know I'm the runaway bride?" she said, half joking, half shielding. "No," Marcus replied, looking directly at her. "I only know you're someone who survived something and found a way to turn it into light for others." Silence fell. Not awkward, just full. "Why me?" she asked. "Because I'm looking for someone to lead a new project, one for people who failed at living for others and are finally ready to live for themselves." He didn't look at her with pity or curiosity, just clarity. "You don't have to answer now, but I think maybe you've been waiting for this longer than you realize." Elena didn't reply. But when she left the room, she was holding a business card tightly in her hand. Vail & Co., Project Second Beginning. Marcus Vail, Creative Director. That night, Elena opened her laptop, ready to draft a new post. But her fingers stopped. Instead of posting on Her After, she created a new folder. She named it Second Beginning. She didn't know what she would do with it yet. She only knew something had begun to move. Elena arrived at Vail & Co. headquarters on a cloudy Tuesday morning. The office sat inside a renovated complex where old warehouses had been turned into open workspaces. Exposed brick walls, high ceilings with wooden beams. No one wore suits. No one had name tags. Everyone called each other by their first names, sipped coffee from ceramic mugs hand-labeled with their initials, and no one looked at her with the eyes that said, "That's the girl who got left at the altar." They gave her a desk by the window facing a small lavender courtyard. On the desk was a folded sheet of paper, handwritten by Marcus. "This isn't a new beginning, just a continuation, on your own terms." Signed simply, M. The work started simple. She was assigned to manage content for Second Beginning, a project collecting the recovery stories of people whose dreams had been shattered. There were women who had divorced after 20 years, artists who had walked away from the stage, single mothers fired for being too inflexible. Elena rewrote their stories, not with cliched inspirational language, but in their own words. Raw, uneven, real. Each story was a shard of a mirror, reflecting back a part of her. Marcus didn't show up often. He was usually out meeting clients or tucked in meetings, typing away like the outside world didn't exist. But every time they crossed paths near the coffee bar, he'd ask one simple question. You okay? No more. No less. Just a steady presence, a kind of male attention Elena no longer believed existed. One afternoon after work, Marcus passed by her desk and noticed a title draft on her screen. If you no longer believe in love, how do you begin to love again? He didn't comment, just said, if you ever find the answer, I'd like to be the first to read it. She looked up at him and smiled, the kind of smile that wasn't rehearsed. On her 19th day at Vale & Co., Elena received an email from Marcus, not through Slack, but directly to her inbox. I'm planning a new video series of reverse interviews. Instead of telling stories, we'll have the subjects ask themselves the hard questions. I think you're the only one who can ask those questions without making them afraid. She replied with a single line. When do we start? 3 days later, they sat together in a closed studio room doing a test shoot. Marcus adjusted the lights. Elena took the seat. Not to answer, just to feel what it was like to be the one in the chair. He set up the camera, sat across from her, turned on the lamp, and looked at her. First question. Just a warm-up, he said. Ready? She nodded. Marcus watched her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he asked, if he hadn't left that day, are you sure you would have been happy? Elena didn't answer immediately. The question bored into her chest, not painful, but splitting something open. She looked into the lens. Then at Marcus. No, she said. I'm not sure. But I know if he hadn't left, I never would have known how strong I am. The camera recorded the silence that followed. A breeze slipped through the window crack. Neither of them spoke, because nothing else needed to be said. That night, Marcus sent her an audio file, a short, unedited clip. At the bottom, one sentence. Some answers are better left raw. Elena read the line 3 times, then leaned back in her chair. For the first time in months, she opened Spotify, but didn't choose the usual playlist of sad songs. She selected lo-fi plus gentle guitar and let herself drift into a kind of quiet that didn't feel forced. Elena didn't know what was beginning, but with Marcus, she didn't feel like she had to perform any version of herself. And sometimes, that's the clearest sign that something is real. Elena didn't read the email right away. The subject line was simple. Official invitation from the Alderwood Cultural Council 50th Annual Autumn Arts Festival. She glanced at the sender's name, Vivian Cross, a name she thought had long been exiled from her emotional vocabulary, yet it still had the power to make her heart pause, just half a beat. She didn't open it, just closed her laptop, stood up, poured herself a glass of water, letting the steam from the mug carry away the sting rising in her throat. 3 days later, she opened it. Hi, Elena. I know it's strange that I'm the one sending this, but I'm writing as a member of this year's organizing committee for the Arts Festival. And because no one but you could truly lead the session on creative women and the power of reclaiming their stories. I know you've left. You've moved on, become successful, and maybe have no reason to care about this town anymore. But if any part of you still wants to walk into that old space from a different place within yourself, this is your formal invitation. Travel and lodging expenses are covered. The event takes place in 6 weeks. If you decline, I completely understand. Vivian, Elena read it and sat still for a long while. Everything remained quiet, but inside her, something had begun to stir, like water at the bottom of a glass being slowly, gently swirled. That week, she didn't mention the email to Marcus, but during their meetings when they discussed potential new candidates for Second Beginning, she began referencing the origins of collapse, small towns, childhood places, the spaces where things first fell apart. One afternoon, Marcus asked, "Have you ever wanted to go back to where it all broke?" Elena looked up from her notes, meeting his gaze. "I don't know what I'd go back for. To forgive or to remind them that I'm still standing?" Marcus didn't respond right away. He spoke slowly, thoughtfully. "Sometimes maybe we go back just to stand on higher ground, not to look down at them, but to see ourselves from a new angle." His words lingered. A week later, Elena replied to the email. Just one sentence. "I'll attend." And for the first time in a very long time, she opened Google and typed, "Alderwood, hotels, bakeries, art shops still in business?" She scrolled through images of the town. Everything looked almost the same. Some places seemed more familiar than her own memories. Gareth still lived there, she knew. But she also knew one thing. This time, she wasn't returning as the Elena who stood in front of a mirror waiting for 3 words. "I'm sorry." When Marcus heard the news, he didn't ask many questions. He just said, "Do you want me to come with you?" Elena shook her head. "I think this is the part I need to walk alone." He nodded, slowly. There was no worry in his eyes, just quiet acceptance, like a harbor waiting for the tide to return. There are chapters in our lives we thought were closed, but sometimes it takes just one name, one email, one invitation, and they open again. Not to be repeated, but to be rewritten. 4 days before the Alderwood Arts Festival, Marcus knocked on Elena's office door around 8 p.m., just as the lights at Vale & Co. were starting to dim, and a soft rain fell outside. She was finishing up the last document before her trip when he entered. No coffee, no files, just him, and eyes that no longer belonged to just a colleague. "You're sure you want to go alone?" Marcus asked for the second time. Elena looked up and nodded gently. "I don't need anyone to protect me," she replied, her voice quiet but firm. "I know," he said with a slight smile, "but sometimes having someone beside you isn't about protection. It's about reminding you that you don't have to stay guarded anymore." She froze for a second. He sat across from her, resting a hand lightly on the edge of her desk, looking straight into her. "You came back to life after being abandoned," he said slowly. "You stood up without anyone holding your hand. But," he paused, his voice dropped, "but if you ever want someone to walk beside you, in the next part, in the silences, in the moments when you no longer have to pretend to be strong, then I want to be that person." Elena looked at him for a long time. She said nothing, just stood, walked over, and asked softly, "Will you come back to Alderwood with me?" This time, Marcus didn't smile. He simply stood and nodded, and in his eyes, Elena saw what she had suspected all along. He'd been standing beside her for a long time, waiting for her to open the door. They arrived in Alderwood on an early autumn afternoon, the town buzzing with festival preparations. Pale orange flags hung between lampposts, craft booths popped up along sidewalks, and the scent of apple pie drifted in the breeze, unchanged from the days of her childhood. Elena said nothing as the car stopped in front of a small hotel beside the town bus depot. She stepped out and stood on the pavement for a long time, staring toward the church where she was once supposed to get married. Marcus stood beside her. No questions, no pressure, just presence. "You look okay," he murmured. "I'm not," Elena said. "I'm shaking." Then she smiled, a strange smile, even to herself. "But I think that's the point. You only grow up when you can tremble, and still move forward." The next day, Elena attended the festival's dress rehearsal. She wore a crisp white blouse, tailored dark pants, and her hair in a clean bun. A man turned when she entered the auditorium, his eyes briefly panicked. "Gareth?" Elena met his gaze, a short nod, no smile, no bow, no bitterness, just a quiet confirmation. "I'm here. I'm standing. I've risen higher than where you left me." Vivian was there, too. She froze when she saw Marcus standing beside Elena, his hand gently resting on her back, a gesture subtle but clear. They sat in the front row beside the other speakers. Marcus leaned in. "I think a few people just died a little inside." Elena smirked. "Give them time. They need to digest it." The main event was held the following evening. When the MC introduced the special guest as the founder of Hereafter, Elena Marlowe walked onto the stage. No whispers, just applause, tentative at first, then building like a rising tide. She didn't mention the day she was left behind. She named no names. She simply spoke of a woman who once dreamed of happiness, had it cruelly taken from her, and for a while believed she had lost everything. But then she realized, Elena said, her gaze sweeping the audience, sometimes the one who leaves gives you the greatest gift of all, the chance to rebuild everything. But this time, not for anyone else, just for herself. She paused and smiled, this time without needing to hold anything back. And when she was ready to love again, the love didn't come to fill her cracks. It came to walk beside her, in silence, in light. In the front row, Marcus bowed his head. A woman behind them whispered, "Is that him?" Elena turned to look at Marcus. He stood and walked up to the stage. No flowers, no ring, just a steady hand reaching for hers, in front of everyone. The first time she returned, Elena was the abandoned bride. This time, she was the woman who chose herself, and a man who truly saw her. They had arrived in Alderwood on a Thursday morning, under a sky so wide and blue it felt like permission. The town buzzed with preparations for the festival's 50th anniversary. Pastel lights, children laughing, the scent of apple pie drifting again. But Elena was no longer the girl curled up in a dressing room, waiting for a groom who wouldn't come. When she stepped out of the car, a woman emerged from the nearby bakery. Naomi Heller, an old classmate, once a teaching assistant with Elena in college. "Elena?" Naomi gasped, then rushed forward to hug her. "God, I thought you'd never come back." Elena smiled gently. "I thought that too." Naomi glanced at Marcus, calm, polished, and gave him a subtle nod. Elena didn't introduce him. She didn't need to. Naomi leaned in, lowered her voice. "Do you know what really happened that day?" Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" Naomi grabbed her hand, whispering fast, urgent. "Gareth didn't leave on his own. Vivian planned everything. She faked emails, staged texts, told him you only wanted his family's name. I saw a voice recording she sent him. But I didn't have the courage to speak back then. I'm sorry." Elena's hand went cold. "Does Gareth know now?" she asked, her voice steel. Naomi nodded. "He does, but Vivian's still around town. Gareth's family, well, they don't want more scandal, but just so you know, he's never married anyone." Elena said nothing, not because it hurt, but because the final pieces had finally clicked into place. "Thank you, Naomi," she said softly, squeezing her hand. "Now I know exactly what I need to do." That evening, the festival's opening gala was held in the town hall. Warm, golden light spilled through tall, arched windows. The guest list read like a who's who of old Alderwood. Mayor Linwood, gallery curators, key sponsors, and, of course, Gareth, seated in the front row beside his father. Marcus entered with Elena, dark suit, calm stride. As the doors opened, they walked in hand. No one whispered, just eyes moving. Then the mayor's gaze lifted and froze. The man beside the woman his son had once left was Marcus Vale, CEO of Vale & Co., major benefactor of Second Beginning, present in over 10 cities. The mayor stood abruptly, walked forward, and extended his hand. "Mr. Vale, it's an honor to have you in Alderwood." Marcus shook his hand, not glancing at Gareth, only looking directly at him. "The honor is mine," Marcus replied. Then he turned to Elena. "And this is my partner, Elena Marlowe." That name, once whispered in Alderwood with pity, scorn, and gossip, now rang through the hall beside a man who never let go of her hand. Gareth turned away. Vivian, standing near the back, turned pale as paper. Elena smiled, and didn't need to say a single word. The reckoning had begun, not with shouting, not with revenge, but with presence, with poise, with power. She didn't need to slam the table, didn't need to scream. I was right. She simply walked back into the very room she once left behind and let them see themselves reflected in her eyes. The morning after the opening gala, word spread across Alderwood. Elena Marlowe was back. Not just back, she now held full executive control of the Second Beginning project, funded by Vale & Co. The local newspaper printed a photo of her standing next to Marcus Vale, shaking hands with Mayor Linwood, a photo where Gareth's downcast eyes had accidentally made their way into the frame, looking small. Out of place. That afternoon, Elena received a message. From Vivian Cross, I think. We should talk. Elena didn't reply. She simply sent back a link. Article, How to Rewrite a Story That Was Twisted by Someone Else. Her after pinned beneath the post was a comment. Liars are only powerful when the truth stays silent. Vivian never replied. The next evening was the festival's first formal panel. Elena was the keynote speaker. But just moments before she walked onto the stage, Marcus handed her an envelope. From the town's communications office, he said. They've asked you to read this. Elena opened it, read it once, and smiled. On stage, after finishing her speech about women rising from ruin, Elena paused, then calmly unfolded the envelope. Before I close, she said, I have one announcement, not about me, but about a truth that deserves clarity. The room went still. Elena Marlowe, she read aloud, never plotted to marry into the Linwood family for status. The rumors years ago, including fabricated emails, text messages, and voice recordings, have been formally confirmed as falsified in an internal investigation by the Alderwood Communications Office. The person responsible, Vivian Cross. Vivian's face froze. A few heads turned toward her. Whispers rippled. Elena's voice remained calm. An official press release will go out tomorrow morning, but I think it's time I said this. Not to defend myself, but to close the chapter. The applause came slow at first, then stronger. Then the entire hall stood. Elena didn't cry, but inside, something unlatched, like the final door had finally opened. After the event, as Elena stepped into the lobby, Gareth stood waiting. His face was gaunt, older. In his hand was a copy of the very letter she had read. He must have asked for it. Elena, he said, voice raspy. I didn't know. I truly didn't know she'd done that. If we could go back. She raised her hand. You don't need to go back, she said, steady, because I'm not standing where you left me. He fell silent. You believed the very first thing that made you doubt me, she added, and no one should love someone they're so ready to mistrust. Then she walked away. Marcus was waiting at the front. When she reached him, he didn't ask a thing. He simply opened the car door for her. You okay? He asked gently. Elena turned back, looking once at the town hall, a place where rumors once defined her, now reduced to dust. I am now, she said. They laughed when I disappeared. Now they're silent as I stand. I think that's enough. Marcus nodded. No, he said. It's only the beginning. Elena smiled, for the first time in a story long shadowed by silence. A smile not of anger, but of freedom. An apology can't erase the years someone stayed quiet. But one truth, spoken at the right moment, can shatter a lie that once made you bow your head. Today, Elena didn't need anyone to speak for her. She stood, and the world had no choice but to listen. On her final morning in Alderwood, the sky was unusually clear. No clouds, no wind. It was as if the entire town had fallen silent, to quietly send off the girl who once left in pain and now was leaving in peace. Elena rolled her suitcase out of the hotel. Marcus walked beside her, holding a cup of hot coffee in one hand and draping her coat over his arm, as if they had always moved through life like this, side by side. I didn't think I'd see you leave this place without leaving something behind, Marcus said, his voice light as mist. Neither did I, Elena replied, her eyes on the trees, their leaves just beginning to turn gold. So what did you leave? She smiled. An old version of myself. They didn't speak again until the car rolled out of town, past all the familiar places, the little bakery on the corner, the bus stop where she once waited to disappear, the church where she was once supposed to say I do. She looked out the window one last time and felt nothing tethered. That afternoon, they returned to the Vale & Co. office. No welcome party, no champagne, but everyone paused for a moment when Elena walked in, as if they instinctively knew she had just done something no one else could. Marcus led her to the rooftop, overlooking the city skyline. In his hand was a small wooden box. No wrapping, no ribbon. "It's not a ring," he said, "and it's not a proposal." Elena laughed. "So what is it?" "A promise," he said, "that wherever you go, whatever you choose, whether we're standing side by side or oceans apart, I'll still be someone you can lean on. No performance, no armor." Elena opened the box. Inside was a key. Engraved on it, in delicate letters, "Begin again, together." She took it, held it tight. For a moment she thought she might cry, but she didn't. She had cried enough in this lifetime. Now, all she wanted was to live. 1 month later, Elena moved into a new apartment. Not grand, not luxurious, but it had a small office, a window facing the park, and a white bookshelf filled with old novels. Marcus didn't move in, but he had a key. Her after kept growing. But now, Second Beginning also bore her name, as a co-founder. In an online interview, someone once asked her, "Elena, do you believe that people who've been hurt always need revenge?" She looked at the screen for a moment, then smiled. "No, but they need to feel strong enough that they no longer need it." "So, did you get revenge?" She shrugged. "I stood up and kept walking. If that made someone uncomfortable, maybe they should ask themselves why." One evening, Marcus turned to her and asked, "If you could do it all over again, would you take a different path?" Elena thought for a long moment. "Maybe," she said. "But if I hadn't taken this one, I wouldn't have met you." Marcus took her hand. That hand didn't promise to never let go, didn't promise a perfect life. It simply held her steady and sure. And Elena knew, in the end, all she ever needed was someone who wouldn't walk away. She didn't come back to reclaim old love. She came back to reclaim herself, and in finding herself, she found a love that never needed proving. The end.